The briefing room was still dark when Lira Dant arrived. She was 18 minutes early, which was not unusual for her, and the lights in Hangar Corridor 7 had not yet cycled to full. What was unusual was that Commander Hale Tor was already there, standing at the projection table with the mission schematic lit in front of him, and his arms crossed, staring at the run as if it had personally offended him. Lira stopped in the doorway. Tor looked up. He did not tell her she was early or ask why she was there 18 minutes before the briefing was scheduled to begin. He just looked at her the way he had looked at her every day for the past 6 weeks, which was the way a man looks at a splinter in his hand that he cannot quite reach. "Cadet Dant," he said. "Commander," she said. He looked back at the schematic. She came in and looked at it too. It was a surface run. The target was a relay array embedded in the canyon network of a moon called Veth Saron, low atmosphere, high electromagnetic interference, canyon walls that rose 400 meters on either side of a passage that narrowed to 60 meters at the throat. The approach required a descent through the interference envelope in under 11 seconds to avoid detection by the automated defense network, then a lateral threading of the canyon at speed, then a precision targeting pass at a distance of roughly 40 meters from the array without touching the canyon walls on either side, then egress through the far end of the canyon, which opened into a crosswind field that the mission brief described as variable and significant, and back to altitude before the defense net recycled. The mission was rated Tier 5. There was no Tier 6. "The senior pilots reviewed this yesterday," Tor said. He did not look at her. "I know," Lira said. "I read the review. The consensus was that the canyon throat makes the run non-survivable at the speed required to beat the defense net. The consensus was that the canyon throat makes the run non-survivable at the speed they require," Lira said. "I have different speed requirements." Tor turned his head. He looked at her with the splinter look again. He was 61 years old and had been flying since before she was born, and the senior pilots who had reviewed the mission yesterday had an aggregate flight record that would have taken her 3 lifetimes to match. She was standing in his briefing room at 6 in the morning, telling him she had different speed requirements. "You've been here 11 weeks, he said. "Yes." "You have 43 solo hours in a Velketh interceptor." "That's 47, she said. "I logged 4 more yesterday." He said nothing for a moment. Outside, the corridor lights cycled up and the room got brighter, and the schematic on the table threw blue light across his face. "The senior pilots have 600 hours minimum," he said. "Most of them have over 1,000. They looked at that throat and told me the margin of error at required approach speed is less than 3 meters. 3 meters, Dan. A single gust from the canyon thermals and the wingtip clips the wall." "At their approach vector," Lira said, "the standard descent angle puts you into the thermal band. You come down shallower, you stay below it. The thermals run between 80 and 120 meters elevation. Below 80, they barely register." Tor stared at her. "I ran the atmospheric data," she said. "It's in the mission package. Nobody pulled the secondary sensor overlay. They used the primary scan summary, which averages across the full corridor height, but the secondary overlay breaks it into 20-meter slices. Below 80 meters, the variance drops to plus or minus half a meter. The canyon throat at that elevation is 62 meters wide. In a Velketh interceptor, with the ventral stabilizers at full extension, you need 56 meters of clearance." She paused. "That leaves 3 meters on each side," she said. "Consistent, stable, not a guess." Tor was quiet for a long time. "You've flown the canyon," he said. "It was not a question." "In simulation, 61 runs." "And your success rate?" 54 completions. 7 failures, all 7 in the first 20 runs. He looked at the schematic. He looked at her. He picked up the mission data pad and pulled up the secondary atmospheric overlay she had described. She watched him look at it. She watched his jaw tighten. "This doesn't mean you're flying it," he said. "I know," she said. The mission briefing at 0700 had 11 people in it. The 4 senior pilots sat in the front row: Dale Soar, who had the most hours, Ven Koth, who had the best kill record, and 2 others whose names Lira had memorized but had not yet had reason to use. They did not look at her when she came in and sat in the back row. She was the only cadet in the room. Tor ran the briefing without mentioning her. He pulled the mission schematic, explained the objective, walked through the approach corridor. He did not mention the secondary atmospheric overlay. He did not mention that a cadet had been in his briefing room 90 minutes ago showing him flight data. Then he said, "Any of you want it?" Silence. Not hostile silence. Not the silence of people holding back. The silence of experienced pilots looking at a mission profile and making a professional assessment. Dale Soar had been flying for 30 years and had survived 14 combat deployments, and he looked at the mission schematic and said nothing, and that said everything. "The array goes live in 72 hours, Tor said. "Once it's live, it covers the entire southern approach corridor, and the station loses navigational autonomy in this sector for the foreseeable future. The window to take it out before activation is this mission. If no one flies it, we lose the corridor." Still nothing. Tor looked at the back of the room. He looked at Lira. She did not move. She had made her argument to him at 6 in the morning, and she was not going to make it again in front of people who had 30 years of flight time on her. Either he had decided or he hadn't. "Cadet Dant," Tor said, "you want to explain what you told me this morning." So she did. She stood up and walked to the projection table and pulled the secondary atmospheric overlay and explained it the same way she had explained it to Tor, clearly and without hurrying, going through the thermal band distribution and the elevation slices and the effective clearance at the sub-80-meter flight path. She had the simulation data on her pad, and she put it up, all 61 runs, with the failure points marked. She did not hide the 7 failures. She explained what caused each one. 5 were approach angle errors corrected by run 20, and 2 were targeting pass miscalculations corrected by run 30. When she finished, she stepped back from the table. Dale Soar looked at her for a long time. He looked at the simulation data. He looked at the atmospheric overlay. He was the best pilot on the station, 11 months in this sector, and he had read the primary atmospheric scan summary and missed what she had found in the secondary overlay. "The ventral stabilizer extension," he said. "Standard doctrine is retracted for canyon runs, more agile. Standard doctrine is written for canyons with turbulence throughout the full corridor height," Lira said. "In this canyon, below 80 meters, extension actually improves stability because there is no turbulence to fight. You give up agility you don't need in exchange for a rock-solid lateral profile." Soar was quiet. "Run 41, he said. "In your simulation data, what happened on the targeting pass?" She had been waiting for that. Run 41 was the one that still bothered her. "I came off the approach angle too fast and hit the targeting window 11 meters early," she said. "The array at that geometry was behind a thermal plume generated by the canyon wall material. The secondary scan shows it, and at the wrong approach angle, the targeting system read the plume as the array signature. I adjusted on run 42 and haven't missed since." Soar looked at Tor. Something passed between them that Lira could not read precisely, but could read generally. "How old are you?" Soar said. It was not quite a question. 19, Lira said. He nodded once. He did not look happy or gracious. He looked the way a man looked when the math added up correctly and he did not have a good argument against it. "She needs a co-certification on the interceptor," Soar said to Tor. "She's got 47 hours. She's not rated for a solo combat profile mission." "I can rate her," Tor said. "Mission-specific certification, I have that authority." I know you do, Soar said. Another silence. Then Soar stood, gathered his data pad, and walked out of the briefing room. The other 3 senior pilots followed him. None of them said anything to Lira on the way out. Tor looked at her. The splinter look was still there, but something behind it had shifted. You have 8 hours, he said. Mission-specific cert runs in the sim, then a wet check in the actual hull. If you pass both, you fly at 2100. Understood, Lira said. She passed the certification runs in 5 hours. The wet check in the actual hull took 40 minutes. Tor flew chase in a secondary craft and watched her run the certification profile without saying anything on comms. When she climbed down, he handed her the mission data pad with the certification box marked. This is still a Tier 5 mission, he said. That does not change regardless of your atmospheric analysis. I know, she said. The defense net recycles in 18 minutes. If you are not out of the egress corridor in 18 minutes, you don't come home. I know. The crosswind field at the far egress is real. The secondary scan doesn't help you there. You're going to have to read it live. I know that too, she said. She was looking at the mission data pad, going over the egress corridor profile one more time. She had run it 42 times in simulation. The crosswind field varied. You could not plan for it. You had to react. Dant. She looked up. Tor was looking at her with something she had not seen from him before. It was not the splinter look. It was the look of a man who had sent people into difficult situations for 30 years and had learned not to let his face say too much about it. You've got the data right, he said. That part I believe. Whether you can fly what the data says, that's the part I don't know yet. Neither do I, she said. I've only done it in simulation. He nodded slowly. He looked like he was going to say something else. He didn't. She went to get her flight gear. At 2100, she took the interceptor off the deck. The station fell away, and the moon grew in the forward display, and the atmospheric entry was textbook. Her hands did it before her mind caught up. The interference envelope was thick, the kind of static that made everything feel slightly unreal through the cockpit sensors, and she dropped below 80 meters with the defense net still reading the upper atmosphere and seeing nothing. The canyon walls came up around her. They were enormous and very close, and the flight profile was the one she had built across 61 runs. Ventral stabilizers extended, descent angle shallow, speed calibrated to the subthermal corridor. The thermal band was above her. She could see its signature on the secondary scan, the shimmer and variance that the senior pilots had called unsurvivable, and she was below it, in the clean, cold air close to the canyon floor. The throat of the canyon came at her fast. 62 meters wide. The canyon walls were rock and shadow on both sides. The clearance was 3 meters per wing, and her flight profile held absolutely steady, because below 80 meters the thermals had nowhere to start, and the secondary atmospheric data had told her exactly what she would find there, and she had chosen to believe it. She went through the throat in just under a second. The targeting pass was 4 kilometers ahead. She had 18 minutes total. She had used 44 seconds. The array was where the mission brief said it would be, embedded in the far canyon wall at a slight angle, and the thermal plume that had fooled her on run 41 was exactly where the scan had placed it, and she held the approach angle that run 42 had given her, and the targeting system locked correctly, and she fired. The array came apart in a clean column of light. Then she was past it, and the canyon was opening, and the egress corridor was ahead, and the crosswind field hit her like a wall. It was nothing like simulation. In simulation, the crosswind model used historical data averaged across 14 days of satellite readings. The actual field moved faster and shifted direction in ways no averaging could predict. The interceptor bucked hard twice, and her left wing dipped, and she brought it back with her foot and her gut, and 47 hours of stick time. and whatever else she had that had no name in a training manual. The third gust was the worst. It came from a lateral angle that the secondary scan had flagged as low probability and hit her at the narrowest point of the egress corridor. And for 2 seconds the interceptor was moving in a direction that was not precisely the direction she wanted it to move. She did not fight it directly. She went with the push, let the nose swing 3 degrees farther than she wanted, and then corrected from there with less resistance than opposing it directly would have cost. It was not a technique she had been taught. It was what her hands found when the alternative was clipping the wall. She came out of the egress corridor at 16 minutes and 40 seconds. She went to altitude and set a course for the station, and for about 30 seconds she did nothing but breathe. On the comms, Tor's voice came through. "Dant." "Still here," she said. A pause. "The array is gone," he said. "Defense net confirms. Southern corridor is clear." "Good," she said. Another pause, longer. "The senior pilots are in the hangar," he said. "They watched the telemetry feed." She did not say anything to that. "Dale Soar asked me to tell you," Tor said, and then he paused again and she waited, "that your approach angle analysis was correct." Lira thought about that for a moment. She looked at the stars ahead of her through the cockpit glass. The station, a bright point getting larger against the dark. "Tell him the secondary overlay was in the mission package the whole time," she said. "He just needed to look." Tor made a sound that might have been the start of a laugh and thought better of it. "Come home, cadet," he said. She brought the ship home,